Hello there, and welcome to part 2 of 4 for this portrait painting that you're observing here. So what I have done is I have filmed basically every single brush stroke of this painting, and I've had many requests to do an extra long painting video, so I decided to do that. I actually completed this painting yesterday, so just to give a little bit of information for what we're going to be doing. So again, this is going to be a long demonstration. Yesterday's video was about 30 minutes, and there are 3 more segments to this video. So you will receive 3 more segments, each approximately 45 minutes. So you have 3 segments that are about 45 minutes, and then yesterday's, which is 30. So I know you can do the math. So you basically will be seeing every single brushstroke for this painting. So let's go ahead and get to it. So in yesterday's video, if you missed yesterday's video, I'm going to leave a link in the description box down below so you can go ahead and see the start of this portrait painting. Now, I would still consider the portrait to be at an awkward stage just because, no features yet, no details, no nothing. So yesterday's video was all about a fearless start and using just very basic flesh tones. So this was about very basic flesh tones. So today it's going to be about drawing with color, and we're basically going to use mass. We're going to use mass, this is all mass, like that's a mass. That's a mass. That's a mass. We're going to use mass to steer specific. So we're going to steer the portrait towards specificity. No need to list out the colors again because hopefully you have seen yesterday's video, but I'll still mention what colors I'm using to do what kind of thing. So in this darker region of the palette, I'm going to add a little bit of my Alizarin Crimson Permanent just to have a little bit of a darker touch. And I'm going to be very strategic about where I start to develop the portrait. So now today is about the specificity, and I don't know if we'll be able to finish this painting today, but we know we're going to take it easy. I'm going to explain these decisions to you step by step. So now we're going to lock into this dark shape here, and we still want to give ourselves a little bit more room, to work with, a little bit of room for flexibility. A little dark shape there for the tear duct. And over here, a little dark shape. And over here. And again, we're working from the inside out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a different brush. This is a size, what is this? A size 2 Princeton Summit brush. And in this lighter region of the palette, with a little bit of cadmium green, I'm going to put in just a little light brush stroke there. And again, we're going to be using mass to steer specific. So we're going to use cadmium yellow deep, and let's use flake white. Flake white into this region of the palette. Lighter brush. And if you missed yesterday's video, it's okay. You may have noticed today and yesterday speaking and painting at the same exact time, which I've heard is referred to as live, not to be confused with like a live stream or anything, but this is not edited. You don't have too many cuts, so you get all of my awkwardness and everything. And sometimes I enjoy doing this voiceover style. Other times I just want to slow down and guide you through every step of the way. I always want to guide you through every step of the way, but sometimes it's just easier on me to do the voicing after the fact. Now I'm just cleaning off this lighter brush, and I'm going to throw in another light shape. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix on the side over here. So titanium white and cadmium green. Ultramarine blue. We're going to just experiment with color at the same time. So there's going to be a much lighter shape over here. And notice how that bright color, that bright kind of cold color is just kind of mixing in with the warmer flesh tone that we put down, and that's intentional.
And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to venture off down towards the nose, and I'm going to still be constructing. So I'm going to clean off the brush one more time using just odorless mineral spirits. And again, we're still constructing from the inside out. So this is still a very fearless way to approach the painting. And now we're just focusing on this like outside shape over here, this little corner. Notice how this is going to turn inwards. And now we're going to start to develop the bulb of the nose. So we're going to use a little bit of Alizarin Crimson Permanent, Cadmium Red Medium. Without any medium. And now we're going to start to basically shape the bottom of the nose. And while we're at it, we're also going to add a little bit more light onto the wing of the nose. Might need to be warmer, so let's use some Cadmium Red Medium. Now notice each feature is going to be developed kind of in the same way, as in with the same number of brush strokes, and trying to see the entire portrait all at once. So a little bit more titanium white, cadmium yellow deep. Be very careful though with your cadmium yellow if you have a cadmium yellow on your palette. Only use it sparingly. I'm going to push that light up, or that shape up a little bit. And then I'm going to notice that there's even more light over here. So again, we're starting to, sculpt out the forms and add much more specificity onto the portrait. But this is a very chill kind of day, a very chill activity. Let's make it even cooler. So just this mixture here. Let's just mix these colors together. And there's a lighter shape right over there. Now I would suggest you, like I said, watch the first video of this, but if you're just following along, so if you're just coming into this painting, what I'm doing, let me try to explain my thought process here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the information that I established previously, and I'm just trying to add more and more specificity, and I'm trying to keep the shapes a little bit larger. So notice how I'm putting in a much larger mass around here, and I'm trying to keep everything malleable, workable, and I'm giving myself more space within each one of these shapes. And we're still in the awkward stage. I would definitely still consider this awkward stage, and it's okay. The awkward stage is just something that happens in painting, especially portrait painting. And we want the likeness to just come naturally. We don't want to force a likeness onto this. So very different mindset today. Very different mindset these days with paintings. I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's just not my style. So we added cadmium green into the shadow here. It's a very brave decision to make, just because I don't, I think it's very dangerous to add light into the shadows. But if you're going to add a lighter shape into the shadows, you want to do so with a pigment, and not like a pure pigment, and not with, say, titanium white. It's going to be a little darker over here. That could get even darker. And let's throw in a little bit of a cooler touch. So we're using both the greens. This is kind of interesting. I have 2 reds, 2 yellows, and 2 greens, and basically 2 blues. Isn't that interesting? And I consider ivory black to be a blue. Just like a very dark and unsaturated blue. And everything is very flexible still at this stage. At this stage, we're still keeping things very simple and easy. There is no need for outlines, no need to fill anything in. We're constructing and we're seeing everything all at once. Sounds pretty fun. As I say this is actually really exciting. I know it's a little bit slower paced, but you know. Let's throw in some more heat. So a little bit more Alizarin permanent. Alizarin crimson permanent. And you know, if the nose just so happens to be in the wrong place, or maybe it's too long or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Notice how easy all of these shapes are. It's almost like sculpting clay. You know, it's like Play-Doh. Did you play with Play-Doh when you were a kid? I was awful with Play-Doh. I remember trying to make like little elephants or whatever with my cousins, and no, I was terrible. My future was not in sculpting, even though I talk a lot about sculpture. Let's throw in even more heat. A little bit of ivory black, alizarin crimson permanent. Start to add more specificity. And tell you what, one thing I always relate is the nose, like the nostril. So I relate this point to this point. So I'm going to be like using a horizontal. And I think that the ear probably is a little higher up. Maybe to about there. Not sure. And let's see. I think I can add even more specificity now to this edge here. So a little bit of ultramarine blue into this kind of reddish area. I just want a very nice and neutral color, and then I'm going to tint it towards the greenish side with the cadmium green. There is some reflected light going on around the back corner here. So right there, right near the back side of the, this is the tragus of the ear. All into here. A little bit more ivory black. And let the likeness come to you. Just work with all of the shapes. Reason with the shapes. Be one with the shapes. Man, I sound crazy. So I'm really liking this cadmium green. Just using it to tint the side over there. And I'm trying to figure out what the this shape here, what this shape actually looks like. So I think it's a little more like angled like this. And then I think that whole thing could get a little bit wider. So more, and the neck, I always relate it to the corner of the mouth, even though it's not there yet. So maybe here, drop a vertical or an angle from here to here. And now we're going to go back to the lighter areas of the flesh tone. And this is how we're drawing with color. You know, it's very different to drawing with, say, outlines. So when we're drawing with color, we're observing large shapes. When we're drawing with outlines, we're observing large, like large proportions, large measurements, with the mindset of coming back in and kind of coloring them, which I think is actually a little bit easier, to be completely honest. But just because it's easier to do doesn't mean we have to do it that way all the time. You know, this way is very exciting. It's very, it's a little bit, it takes a lot more paint handling. But in any case, it's fun to try to observe all of these shapes all at once. So I'm going to add a little bit more information into the nose, and I'm not going to be very focused yet on the the exact details for the features. I'm kind of thinking about this as like what John Singer Sargent would say, like a wig maker's don't remember the words anymore. All right, go ahead, throw in some John Singer Sargent quotes in the comment section, because I can't think of them off the top of my head. A wig maker's block, I think it is. So basically, we're just looking at the mask of the face. We're drawing with color. We're making these shapes much more specific now. You know, even into here, we're going to be approaching a little bit of a cooler note, a little bit of a cooler halftone. I like saying halftone, halftone. A much cooler halftone right here. Not to make fun of any accents. There we go. So that right there, let's try to use a single brush stroke. There we go. So that is the what's that? Superciliary arch. A little bit of cadmium red. A little more cadmium red. You know, and even at this stage, I don't know how long we've spent on this painting now. Might seem like forever for you, but for me, such a short amount of time. Like, this still feels really early, like a really early stage in the portrait. Now we're starting to sculpt out these planes, and I'm adding a little bit more warmth into the zygomatic region, just because there's usually a little bit more warmth in these shapes. I think that photo reference kind of flattens it out a little bit too much, flattens out the color. Photo reference are very useful for getting like information, lots of information, but I mean, there's always a compromise, right? And the compromise here is in the color. I'm pretty sure that there's more warmth into this area in life. I may need a halftone brush, and you know, this is a clean and dry brush. So I'm just gonna pick up some of this paint, and literally we're gonna herding sheep. We are steering specific. So literally we're guiding these forms around one another, pushing them into each other to add much more specificity. So say we look over here now with this now designated halftone brush. We got 3 synthetic brushes in hand. So again, I do get a lot of questions about brushes. So I like to start off with bristles. And especially if you're working on a cotton canvas or a linen canvas, bristles all the way. And then when it comes time to do all this stuff, you know, like the smaller sculpting out the forms, then you want to transition into softer brushes, just because you don't want large piles of paint anymore. Instead, you now want to herd the paint around. You want to herd the sheep. You want to steer specific. Gonna come up with some more weird analogies. You know, like if you're sailing a ship, establishing all of those shapes was like getting the ocean, like establishing the ocean, and now we're just basically, you know, riding the waves, building more and more specificity as we go. I did throw in a little bit more pink, so I am pushing the color in a warmer direction around here and a cooler direction over there. Speaking of cooler, switch to the yeah, I think I mixed up my brushes. Okay, so this is the halftone brush. Okay, so the lighter brush, I should put tape on them or something. So here's the lighter brush. I'm gonna go for an even cooler note. Titanium white, ultramarine blue, and tell you what, I want to ask you another question. I've been asking a lot of questions these days. I'm going to look into my comments, the comments section, much more now. I'm going to be real with all of you. I don't do too well with negative comments. Just me personally, like I know, I get it. You're a YouTuber, you're on YouTube, you should be able to take, you know, you should be able to take the hits. But I'm actually kind of a sensitive guy. So that's I just kind of get afraid to look at the comments. And if you have a YouTube channel or if you feel the same way, let me know in the comment section down below. Oh yeah, so the question I was going to ask. I know that it might be a little bit longer, this format of video where I'm actually talking to you, you know, like telling you like I'm going to sneak in a little bit more cadmium red into the middle tone region of the palette kind of thing. But do you like this style? What do you think about the voiceover style? You know, the one I did a couple days ago now. Do you want to see? I'm going to do both, okay? I'm going to do the voiceover style and this style. So I'm not saying I'm going to stop one way or the other. I'm just saying, what do you prefer? The voiceover style? Or do you prefer the live style? Meaning painting and talking at the same time. So I guess comment down below, live or voiceover. Which one do you like? Which one do you prefer? This is live, the other one is voiceover. And so we're going to throw in even more warmth right into here. And while we have the warmth on the brush, let's just go ahead and put that into the ear. The ear is going to have a lot of nice and warm, rich tones. So what did I just do? Okay, so this is my middle tone brush. I should be using my darker brush, so I'm going to switch to a darker brush. So the Alizarin Crimson Permanent. And here, let's see here. So I like to relate the tragus of the ear to the wing of the nose. So right there. Crap, just put a mark on the side. Oh well. So anyway, the tragus of the ear is like right there. It's above the wing of the nose. Shape there for the bottom of the ear. So now we're going to switch to the lighter brush, and I think it had a little bit of a greenish tone to it, which is fine. Want it to be a little bit more pink now, so cadmium red medium, yellow ochre, a little bit more cadmium red medium, Make it a little bit warmer, so more cadmium red medium. And another thing, I relate the top of the ear to the side of the eye, even though it's not concrete yet. So that side of the eye would be there. I don't know, so right. They're almost plumb, meaning they're almost matching. So I guess this has to drop to about there. Now I'm going to switch to the darker brush that I was using before. I don't know, Alizarin Permanent, Ultramarine Blue, some more Neo McGill Medium. There we go. We want a nice, rich, dark shape there. So there's a darker shape here. A little bit more warmth. A little bit more Alizarin Permanent. Trying to get the shape of the hair and the texture of the hair all at once. Alright, so now I think I'm going to switch to the shadow brush. And again, we're going to continue to steer specific. So we're going to use a little bit of burnt umber, sap green. I'm going to try to get this color mixing into this area of the palette. Let's see. Is that okay? I think that's working. So let's go ahead and use this because that needs to get darker. And notice now how we're slowly starting to get out of the awkward stage in the portrait. And let's make a little bit of a yellowish, warm flesh tone there. So yellow ochre, sap green into this region of the palette. Remember I said that I like to use the flake white and the flesh tones? This is me basically doing that. More burnt umber, more flake white. Let's see what this value does. Too dark. Titanium white. What value do I want? I guess this value. Now what color do I want? I guess cadmium yellow deep. And I'm just trying to establish another plane over here. Let's move up in the value scale. And there's even a little touch of light over there. And over here, there's a little bit of light for the upper lip. But I think it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit cooler. So I'm going to put in some cadmium green. Titanium white. And yes, we are still working from the inside out, not paying too much attention to the features or any specific details about the features because that would not really help at this point. At least I don't think. We can throw in a little bit of something like a warm tone now just for the lips. I have been steering kind of clear from the lips. Starting off with the middle, the top middle with burnt umber. I'm gonna stick to like a kind of neutral red, a dark neutral red, as opposed to jumping in with anything too bright red. So now I'm gonna switch to the darker brush. And, this is still, just when you put in something new, you always enter in another awkward stage. So now that we're starting to put in some accent marks, more specific accent marks for the mouth, we do enter in another awkward stage, and that's okay. It's all part of the visual, visual communication, for lack of better terms. Halftone brush. And I'm thinking about this large overall shape. What did I just do? Again, I keep mixing up my light brush and my dark brush. So I'll tell you what, let me show you how I clean off these brushes. So I'm going to leave the dark brush alone, but I'm going to clean off the light brush and the middle tone brush, just with a little bit of Odorless Mineral Spirits. I'm going to want to clean them really well. And that should be about good, I hope. So now with the halftone brush, I'm going to want to continue to put in more specificity. So I'll tell you what, the ultramarine blue right into this middle tone region of the palette should give me the shape that I want, or should I say the value that I want. I think that's about good. Let's see here. So I'm going to add a little bit more, let's say, Alizarin permanent. I really have to squint my eyes to see this. So Alizarin permanent, ultramarine blue into this little region of the palette. And just squinting my eyes, I see that the bottom here could get a little darker. A little bit more ivory black. Let's see here, right over here. Also gives us a nice little shape for the nostril. And while we're at it, let's use this dark and warm shape for the tear duct. Should be right somewhere over there. But again, we're giving ourselves so much more room and so much more freedom to work with. Now back into the middle tone brush, I'm going to continue to sculpt around here. Well, let's use the ultramarine blue. There we go. Yep, right over here. Now, one thing that I haven't really been paying much attention to is this outside shape. And again, we're working literally from the inside out. So later on, we'll be able to finalize that outside shape. Now the flesh tone brush, the lighter flesh tone brush, I'm just going to use it on its own. You know how I cleaned off the brushes, so just using it to get this like whole perimeter softened and sculpted out. And again, this is how we're herding the paint. Not hurting, but herding the paint. Like herding sheep. And we're steering specific. So we're going to need a little bit more light. There. And And I think this is just a lot more fun for me these days, not to have to worry too much about the measuring. And by now you're probably noticing that I get really quiet when I'm very focused. Hope that's okay. Might want that to be a little cooler. Cadmium green. Might be too green. Whoops. So let's use the let's use a complementary just to add a little bit more of a neutral yet still warmish tone. There we go. Where is that halftone brush? Where are you? Okay, it's this one. A little bit of cadmium red. So let's see, with the halftone brush, let's mix into the middle tone region of the palette. We're going to be using Alizarin permanent and cadmium red. Maybe a little darker, and let's just say a little less saturated, so let's use this. So with the lips, I like to start off with the middle, the top middle. I don't want to put too many details or brush strokes in just yet. Switch to the lighter brush. And again, remember, when you put in something new, a new bit of information, it undergoes yet another awkward stage, and that's okay. Might be getting a little too red. Whoops. So let's use the sap green. Just to kind of combat that color. I think I'm just starting to put way too much for the mouth. So that means we might want to move on to the eyes, I guess. Alright, whatever. Okay, so now I think we're going to want to move on to the eyes. So, I'm going to get another brush. Don't know if I want to use a brush this small, but whatever. So we're going to use Ivory black, titanium white, a little bit of medium, Neo McGill medium, and you know what I'm mixing up, right? I like to mix up the sclera with black and white, and then flesh tone. And that's it. I try to steer towards the cooler side with this. Not so much the pinker side. And again, every new introduction to the portrait is going to introduce a new awkward stage. It's just an awkward thing, isn't it? But it's okay. I'm a very awkward person. And just awkwardness is just part of it all. I think that's why I love painting so much. In particular, portraits. Just embrace your inner awkward. And just like I was doing before, we're putting in much more of a shape than we need, just to give ourselves room to work with a little bit more. You know what? I should have a darker brush for this, but whatever. Ivory black, and you're seeing right what I'm mixing. There we go. Now I'm going to switch to another brush, and now I'm going to use a really tiny brush. This is a size 0 round. So I'm going to just use, I don't know, burnt umber. Yeah, whatever. Just burnt umber for now. Just to start to sketch in the iris. Talk about awkward. Woof. It's really awkward when you put in anything for the eyes. That's why I try to stay away from the eyes for as long as possible. Be one with the awkward. It's okay. Just work with your shapes. Promise you, it'll all be fine. Now we're going to still continue to work from the inside out, but now we're going to start to put in the bottom region of the lower eyelid. So just follow along with this little paint mixture here. I just want something that's warm, but I don't want it to be too pink. So let's go ahead and throw in some, cadmium yellow deep and burnt umber are really nice mixtures together. There we go. So let's see. And now we're starting to put in some shapes for the lower eyelids. And trust me, it's all going to work itself out. We're trying to give ourselves more shape than need be, so that we can come back in and sculpt out more specificity. And at this point, I realized that the painting time is it's taking a while, just because portrait takes a long time. So I may have to split the video up even more, so it plays throughout the week. A little bit of burnt umber into this area here. I'm looking for the contour of the eyes. I think let's use this dark brush right into here. There we go. I'm looking for the contours surrounding each one of these shapes. And by now you're probably losing faith in me, because this does take a long time. And I'm always trying to present the reality of creating these paintings to you. It's just sometimes, there's much more editing involved just to make it seem a little bit shorter. But I don't know. I'm just painting as I go. So what's bothering me now that I'm starting to put in the eyes is the amount of accuracy or lack thereof. So I'm trying to keep myself much further back. Tell you what, I may go a little silent for a little while, because I'm trying to be very precise with these marks now. And notice that shape needed a little bit more adjusting. You know, the more you put in new information, the more you really help to see other shapes in relation to one another. So putting in those shapes for the eyes made me notice that I could just put in a little bit more light into this plane change. Something else is going on with the mouth there, but I can't quite figure it out yet. It says visual problem solving. You know, I think what it is probably all around here. The silhouette needs much more accuracy now.